I think I got up at, well, I think I got to sleep around 11:30 last night, and I was up at 4 o'clock this morning. And there's a grind all day, but we got it done. Had a great time with a bunch of great people from Washington State today. You probably can't see this, but there's a pile of fish caught today. Oops. It was great. And 2 more days left for this group. Now I'm hiding from the sun. It is so hot outside. It's ridiculous. I got the boat facing the wrong way at the dock, so the sun's just beating in on the seats in the stern. So I'm hiding inside the boat. It's kind of comfy. Sarah's fish pattern pillowcases. And my guide partners are up on the deck up top drinking beer. I don't want to drink beer, so I'm hiding. So what else can I do? I can do this. I like doing this. And I popped the question on the 4 guys, the new guys in the boat today. We're bullshitting away, and I finally said, "Hey, and you guys got any Bigfoot Sasquatch stories? Know anybody?" And automatically they all start smiling, and then they stopped smiling because they saw that I wasn't smiling. And one guy went, "Yeah, I do. I know a guy that says it, you know." And there you go, boom. It doesn't matter where you are. Almost doesn't matter where you are these days. You get in a group of people who somewhat are outdoors people, even if they just fish or whatever, and you start asking. And that's how you find out. And you ask seriously, right? Now, listen to this. It's titled Retired Military 20 Plus Years, Information Steve. These are all older, I think. I think you're right. This info needs to get out. I worked in a job to gather intelligence and analyze, report, etc. Track people, things. Difficult for me to write this. I've been in some bad places. Had to do some bad jobs in the military trying to remain somewhat vague. But give you info. Some of us know about these creatures, beings, whatever you want to call them. Early 90s had to help recover what was left of a soldier's body in the country I was in at the time, and let's just say someplace in Europe. We all had plastic bags ordered to pick up anything and everything that did not belong. Officially listed, training accident. Okay, for the story. 2 soldiers were out in a remote area in Europe doing what is called a heart-shaped recon of an area about 4 clicks in size was their assigned area. Go out, 1 going down each flank of the heart-shaped area, separated about a click apart in rugged wilderness, going down each flank, meet in the middle, and backtrack through the middle back to base of operations or forward operating base. When the soldiers were within about 50 meters of each other, one soldier heard a scream and saw a very large creature reach out, a large, hairy, long arm, grab the other soldier, pick him up by his legs and feet area, and swing the soldier from his legs like you swing a baseball bat, head first against the side of a large tree, busting his head like an egg yolk. The creature then started screaming and roaring while dismembering the dead soldier. The eyewitness was in shock, traumatized, left everything, ran back to base of operations, and all training was shut down. All units put on alert immediately, and of course during that time we were all armed. Not told what happened and why all the soldiers were given plastic bags and told to be within arm's reach of each other and put on line to move forward to pick up anything that did not belong. Soldier that was murdered. Almost 20 years of service already at the time, a very experienced eyewitness was his friend, known him for several years in the area or a field of expertise they worked in. Not many of us, so we all pretty much know each other. I guess if I would have known that there are some jobs you sign up for you can't get out of, would have changed my whole career in a different path. Rambo, what a draft dodging piece of S. The real deal sucks. Told to enjoy the suck sorry to go on like that. There's a bunch of punctuation missing, okay? That's why I'm sounding awkward, you guys, but we'll get it. Anyways, while everyone was completing their missions, the 3-letter groups came in, set up a tent, you know, the men in black suits. Go in tent, sign papers, you won't talk or lose everything you have. Reputation, career, retirement, threatened prison time, those kinds of threats. Assholes and cover-ups. The eyewitness did not know him personally. He was committed to military institution, the rumor goes. Never heard of again. Not that some of us did not try to find out. Love and care about your soldiers. Some are like our sons, some like brothers, etc. Never leave the fallen behind. Of course, everyone respected the man that was, I say, murdered by that thing. He was very well respected. Many combat operations, you know, 15 men, you get your shit. Don't know what country we are in sometimes. Be at this point, or you miss the ride 17 days, etc. Very, very few people know about this. I'm sick and tired of the bullshit and lies, and you're right about money taker. Funny thing, after something like this happens, you want answers, right? Can't do much when you're in the military, still at the time. Anyways, some military friend introduced me to a guy that worked for money taker. They know was my job to track people in shithole places, terrorists, enemy, etc. So this guy asked me if I would try to collect evidence of this creature in Ohio. Back in the mid-1990s, when I was back in country, I already wanted answers. So I said, sure. Not knowing what I was getting myself into, sounds like a familiar story with me. Did not learn the first time, I guess. Anyways, I did find and collect evidence. All the above. Hair, skin, shit. Eyewitnesses scared to death of what they experienced and interviews I did. All the evidence supposedly sent to Ohio State University. Video, audio, you name it, all conveniently disappeared. And it's interesting to note, DOD, government tags, vehicles following me in remote areas started tracking them and finally said, that's it, F them all. All a big cover-up. They know exactly what's going on. Bodies. Steve, they already had that long ago. In my job, we were all briefed on these things at the time. Pisses me off. I know a lot more, but hard to write and talk about some of this. Eyes and ears everywhere. I'm not Rambo. Just someone that cares about my country and sick of seeing people discredited to shut them up. Steve, check out Lee County, Kentucky and Owsley County. 2 people murdered by these things. Just so happens one was military vet. I think it was 2016. The man had the footage of his own murder. Someone I know was law enforcement for Lee County. Funny how the FBI showed up before he could even pick up the phone to call them. Black Ops comes in, teams kill, fly body out, you get my drift. Plenty of witnesses to include law enforcement. And of course they were threatened, and the one I was referring to suddenly retired after that. Take care, let me know what you think about this, and please do watch your back. Many of us vets do talk about you. You need to be careful. We have your back. But it's the others you need to worry about. Wow. This email is a few years old, and we haven't read it. And to the man who wrote it in, I hope you're still here watching the channel. That is something else. I'm going to make sure I can find your email and email you back right away as soon as I can. Holy shit. I sincerely hope you're still here following the channel and you're still here with us on the planet. And I will email you right away and we can have further conversation. I would thoroughly enjoy that, and I absolutely appreciate you coming forward. Absolutely appreciate you coming forward. There you go. I hope I didn't butcher that too much. It was a little difficult to read. I don't know why. Is it because of me? I guess I'll find out when I read the next one. We'll be touching base with this man again for sure, you guys, I promise. Wow. That's not the first time I've heard of something similar before. I've heard of somebody getting, some soldiers, more than one though, getting blasted against some trees by the feet, picked up and just swung. And I've also heard of them doing that to wild hogs to kill them too. Wow. Okay. Sabe on military base, Fort Stewart, Georgia. Steve, greetings, sir. My name is Dave. Last name withheld since I'm still active duty. 49-year-old Army active duty stationed at Fort Stewart, Georgia. I'm a huge fan, been following you since last fall. Thanks for what you're doing. Round table of knowledge. Straight to my story. First, I'm a tougher than average kind of guy. I give myself stitches, set some broken fingers, toes, etc. I once ran through a 15-mile obstacle course with a broken foot. In other words, I'm not a wimp and I don't scare easily. I also have hunted all my adult life, taken deer, hogs, bear, walked through all kinds of timber, mountains, jungles, without fear for my life. I've traveled all over the world, been in 2 wars, seen death and violence. I'm not a man that walks with fear, not until now. Last year in the fall, I was bow hunting on the base in a bow-only area, which is about 3 square miles of pine forest and swamps. I got in the area early, around 4 o'clock. I like getting up my tree at least 1 hour before first light. I like to hear what's around me, let the area settle down after sneaking through to my tree. Right before sunup, I heard the loudest whoop sound I've ever heard. It sounded like it came from 50 yards in front of me. It was so loud, I felt it on my shirt. I just couldn't make sense of it. I was about 12 feet up a pine tree. When the sun came up, light enough for me to see, I had new growth pines in front for about 250 yards. None were over 6 foot tall, and a bunch of palmetto plants. Further out, about 300 yards away, was a huge old growth stand of pines. It went for about a mile to my left and right. I'd forgotten I was hunting deer and was fixated on trying to figure out what could have made that sound. The nearest farm was 5 miles to my south. The nearest building or workshops were about 1 mile behind me. No one else was checked into the area. We check in on a website, and you can see how many others are hunting near you. Okay, I read this. Okay, I'll keep going. Lots of new people here. I was alone, Steve, or so I thought. About 10 to 15 minutes had passed since the yell. I decided not to move a muscle in case whatever made the noise was within eyesight of me. I didn't want to give away my position with movement. My camo blended perfectly with my tree and pine needles. Then it yelled again. This time I could tell the sound was direct toward me. The sound was directed toward me. I now realize that the first time it was just a yell. This time the whoop was in my direction, and there was no mistaking this change. It knew I was there, and it sounded louder this time. I think it was coming from the pine forest 300 yards away, but it sounded like it was right in front of me. And then I did something I've never ever done. I climbed down, took my climber and bow and left as fast as I could, making sure I stayed below the 6 foot tall hedge of new growth. I did not want this thing to see my escape route. I was actually shaken up a bit. This thing scared me more than 2 wars, or even my old man with a belt ever did. I was ruined for the next several weeks. I didn't know what to do. I asked some trusted friends if they had ever heard or seen anything similar. One friend, an ex-Navy SEAL, said he had some friends chased off a hunting lease near the swamp by a huge, hairy thing that hollered so loud at them, some of them got sick to their stomach. I started Googling and YouTubing whoops, and now I know. That's also how I found your channel. And side note, after doing some research, there have been about 4 or 5 eyewitness reports here on this base over the last 30 years. Some were by a whole armored patrol of about 12 men. The patrol commander reported it to the range control officials. I don't know what the outcome was, but it was the 3rd or 4th report at the time. It scared all of them enough to sleep in their armored vehicles that night in the summer in southern Georgia. Had to be serious danger to make 12-man crew sleep in oven-like conditions for 8 hours. I have no desire to see what made the noise, but thanks to your channel, I know what it was. And P.S. I went back near the area in the evening after work one day and shot a nice buck. Not afraid so much now. Just check my 6 every few steps. Sorry about the past, Mr. Macaroni. I hope you find only good memories when you look back. Keep up the good work, Steve. It's much needed, Dave. I didn't read this before. but I've read something very similar. Dave, appreciate you and your kind words, man. The time you just took in your life and gave to us here. It's a big gift. Appreciate you. And welcome to the club, right? I'm glad the channel helped. That's what the channel's all about. And it's funny, like I was telling people, I was telling Nino too, you don't say like, subscribe, and share here because you just can't. This isn't a topic that you try to make popular. You can't. I don't think you can, unless you turn it into some kind of shitball entertainment thing. This topic is predominantly the people who are interested in this topic are people who are directly affected by the topic. Now, look at the numbers. There's over 300,000 people subscribing here, and they did it on their own. They were encouraged or asked to. And this channel has never been marketed in any way. I don't even share this channel on my social media, other pages. I just don't. I know there's no need to. Because it's just not a topic you can push onto the general public, right? It's hard for your average human to even attempt to have a serious curiosity about the topic, right? But you just got to think of how many people know. Think about that one, you guys. Think about it. How many people know, right? And they're searching and they're looking, and that's how they're finding each other here. It's the only way they're doing it is from their honest interest in the topic, right? I'm babbling, so I can close my eyes right now and sleep for 3 days, I swear. Alright, another one. This is titled Elmendorf Air Force Base Sighting. Hello, Steve. 1978. When my dad was stationed at Elmendorf Air Force Base, Alaska, there's a guy on guard duty. His job is to check the perimeter of the flight line there on the base, and he was doing his duties. As he was doing his duties, he saw a large, hairy person. He called it that, came out of the darkness from one of the buildings and ran across the flight line towards the perimeter fence, which was about 7 feet tall, with concertina wire on top of it, and he yelled at him to halt, and it took one jump. Went over the fence, cleared the concertina wire, landed on the other side, and took off into the forest. The sighting shook him up so bad that he went immediately and reported it to his supervisor. I think it was on the news also, I'm not 100% sure. My dad was on duty that night and heard about it, and I heard it from him also. But what I'm wondering is, if anybody that is listening to this encounter, if they were possibly in Alaska at the time and heard about this, please write in and tell us what you know about this sighting. You can share my name, Kenneth Brinkerhoff. Kenneth, I think I read this before, but I think it's a good time to read it again, right? With that message. If anybody else is in Alaska at the time and heard about this, know about it, write in. Now, I'm going to get out of here because I think I'm repeating a little too much, and I'm going to go up to the top of the line to new emails. All right? Man, it's so hot. I'm in an oven right now, and there's no escape outside. This has no title. Hello, Howtohunt family. I just finished watching the video with the Cavalry Scout at Fort Jackson. Wow. I, too, am a 19 Delta, and have worked at various posts, Fort Knox, Jackson, Gordon, Polk, and Lewis in Washington. I will let you know that at Fort Lewis, there was a unit of a sort that I will let you know that at Fort Lewis, there is a unit of a sort that actively hunts or reacts to incidents concerning the people. My first clue was Chinook helicopter with a Squatch painted on it. While on a field exercise in Yakima, Washington, there was a rumor of some soldiers spotting one. Then the helo, with a couple little birds, Lauch helos, L-A-O-C-H helos, appeared in the area. All training was halted. Stay-in-place orders given. Our commander couldn't or wouldn't tell us why, but I knew why. Even told my sergeant why. And he told me to shut up and don't talk about it. One of these days, I will send you my story. of his and my experience at Fort Lewis. For now, keep safe. May God bless you and yours. Keep your eyes open and looking up. David Three Feathers. Did you say to share your name, David? All right, David, I got you, man. I got you. I see your name at the top. I hope you're going to write that in. We want to hear. We want to hear everything you know. All right? We want your knowledge. And appreciate you big time. Appreciate you for sending that in. Oh, I'm melting, you guys. I'm so melting. I'm going to keep going. All right, listen to this. Southeast Saskatchewan. 2023, February 2nd at 2:43 p.m. was the time and date we saw it. Hello, Steve and Club and No Return. Here's a quick background of myself. I'm a First Nation and hunter. I started about 4 or 5 years ago elk hunting and never had any experiences. With that being said, since I started hunting, I've been hooked. I work in the oil field, so I get to see lots of big game, elk, moose, etc. I found Steve like anyone else would, searching something on YouTube on how to. So, How to Hunt is how I found Steve. I've been listening since the hunting stories and your no bullshit approach kept me around. The day we seen it is clear as yesterday. I live facing a golf course and a huge hill in my backyard. For Steve only, this hill is called blah 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 blah. Gotcha, man. I've seen this huge bull moose in my hunting years. Named him Big Hank. Since then, I passed him up a couple years to see him grow. So, anytime I have binos or a spotting scope, I'm looking for him. I told my dad about Big Hank and keeps an eye out for him. I got home from work, and ending my day, I was about to grab the binos and thinking, I wish I had a different attachment for my spotting scope instead of holding it. Just then I mentioned I'm kind of glad my mother seen this spotting scope on Facebook for sale. It had a window mount on it. Just then my dad said, I have an old tripod with a camera mount from the 80s or 90s, so I was hesitant it wouldn't fit. At this time I'm standing at the window facing east, looking for a big dark spot, aka Big Hank. By the time we got the scope mount attached on level and finally facing east to the huge backyard, I looked at the clock and it was 2:42 p.m. and was picking a spot to scan and look. We have a big sacred hill about a couple miles as the crow flies. Some people walk up to the top to say prayers or pray or just for views. But from this distance, people look like a star or stick shape. Even can see multiple people from our house point of view, but today I thought I'd seen Big Hank. I said, Dad, there he is. He's going to walk up the south side of the hill. We switched between binos and spotting scope, and before we did, I started describing what I'm seeing firsthand. It has 2 legs. Yes, 2 legs. And it's a man. It's bipedal. He's big. He's going to reach the top in 3 or 4 strides, but just as I was saying this, the Sabe/big guy slowed down to 3/4 up the hill, and his head was almost level with the top. And my dad has one eye and is trying his best to see. He thinks it's a man going to the top to pray. He said that guy's not even going all the way to the top. He can't even say he climbed the hill to the actual top. I said, look at his color. Dad was still in disbelief. He said it looks like a lady wearing a big long winter jacket. I was trying to give him details to how big this effing thing is. I said, look at the trees around him. 2 to 3 strides, and maybe it's 3/4 of the way up the hill. I started saying, who's the tallest man you ever seen? And are they in shape enough to walk easily up a snow-covered hill? Some snow on the side, but hill still very steep in dry months and will leave most people sucking air before they reach the top. I said, I'll recreate it when it's dry out. This happened in February on a windy-ass Saskatchewan day. I work in the oil field and had a snowblower opening up leases all day, so I know that back road to access that hill is never open. Maybe a grader might push close to the hill maybe a grader might push close to the hill access, but no one will climb the hill in the winter. We seen it almost scale the hill to almost almost scale the hill to the almost top in a few strides, stood top facing southeast, and stared off in that direction, and then had its hands near its side, palms up slightly, not quite 90 degrees, and they were down low on its body. In the middle of switching back and forth, they seen it face east and stare off. Then my dad said, "Hey, Rude, you know that high statue in Rio, Brazil, with the Jesus with arms extended out to his side?" And I replied, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." He said, "Is that what it's doing?" I seen and said, "Yeah. Look at his frame/size muscles." My dad's seen the color, red/orange, and thinks that's the color of the coat, lol. I seen orange/beige color. We took a long time after the sighting to discuss the color. Who is that effing big? And much more at the time. The viewing lasted maybe 1 to 2 minutes. It was 2:45 when we took our eyes off of it. We don't know where it went or disappeared. Just in the middle of switching back and forth, it was gone. Since then, my dad has been asking the reserve if anyone went up to pray on that day, and to his surprise, they all said Bigfoot, and no expression or much more. My dad was telling me before that he was praying to see a sign or something real, like really, really no bullshit sign, like a hawk flying over his head. He said, "You gotta make it real plain as day, Creator." And I think that was the answer he got. Since then, Spotting Scope hasn't moved, lol. We peek out every now and then. We seen since 2 cow moose on a hill, maybe half that distance, and seen the big dark spot without the scope. My dad slowly convinced me we seen what we seen. We talked about every fit guy that's tall and no one came to mind. It was huge. Am I convinced? Like Steve, they might not be here all the time. I will climb the hill and take pictures from our view, and I'll look like a dot. Seriously. Thanks, Steve. Not even going to say it's spell checked or punctuation is dialed in. Okay, gotcha, man. It worked out great. And I absolutely appreciate you sending that in. And that's a fairly recent email, right? Fairly recent experience. And there's a lot going on in Saskatchewan. A lot. All right. Okay, one more. Maybe a couple more. This is titled One Bad Apple and a Surreal Experience, No Name Please. Gotcha. Hello. I've written several times before, some of which you have read. To say the saga continues is an understatement at best. More, much more is now going on. First, a little on how it got to this point in time and its relation to me. I've seen these guys several times. By this I mean over years. It seems wherever I go, they find me. Somehow they seem to know me. I've listened to others, quote, "I'm tagged," end quote, it seems. Now saying this is a two-edged sword, I think. Now saying this is a two-edged sword, I think. On one hand, it's a win for my farm. No deer. They all get run off or eaten. I can from time to time hear one of them, deer, being slaughtered on the hill around my home. However, on the other hand, at least as of late, there seems to be a bad actor around. Really foul smells, hearing walking in the woods. When you look, there's nothing there. Turn away, and it starts again. One of my pets went missing the other week. I went looking for him. I know better than to go into the hills alone. Bad things can and do happen to people that do that. I've heard of a cat identical to my lost friend. I always played with him on the farm, and I think they took him. You see, I hear him in the woods up there on the hill calling. It's like he's there, and I can go find him and bring him home. I answered his call with mine, something we always did, and he would come running home. Only all I ever get is a return call identical to the one I put out. I'm not a novice in the woods. I'm 64 years of it, and some really good times, and some bad ones as well. I think you can relate to this. The calls continue at times almost like they're trying to get me to come into the hills looking for them. It's not going to happen. Lately, there's been an uptick in activity around the barn area and behind my home on the hill. I made them promise to never go onto the hill when they are there and asked them not to come onto the farm as well. This has been the arrangement for some years now. My dogs are always near me when I'm outside, and never without them has told me when one of them is near. It seems that one of them has taken an interest in me personally. There are too many instances where I have had the overwhelming sense of something close. One time there was a growl I heard clear as day, and no one else heard it but I did. Now that was directed right at me. My response was not to their liking, I would think. The sidearm came out and everything stopped. No sound whatsoever anywhere, including the woods. My barn now is the focus of the activity, as is the hill behind my home. I hear and feel them all around the house at dusk, but oddly, never hear them through the night, only during the daytime. I'm at a loss for this, as I thought they were primarily nocturnal things. Throughout the night at various times during the month, mostly when it's a dark moon and hard as hell to see, my dogs go nuts for hours, always looking at the area of the barn. When I look, there's nothing to see, although I can feel something there at times. It's like they're just not really visible. The one bad apple I spoke of in the title, I believe, is the one that doesn't like having me around so much. Stones have been lobbed my direction, trees have crashed, and a very nasty odor of something dead close by. My dogs have at times been scared, so much they won't leave the deck to go do their business. I've addressed them directly at times. I've said, I'm not here to fight or have you angry with me. Leave me be, or show yourself at a distance. If you scare me, I will shoot you. I don't want to do that. Oddly, the activity level seems to be cyclic, almost predictable, mostly on warm, hot sunlit days, always at a distance from me and the dogs. At first I thought humans or lost animals, as they act like this sometimes, moving, stopping, and smelling bad. But the growling and the tree crashing, a lost T-Rex? Well, okay, maybe. The activity seems to be centered around me, as my wife is rarely affected by any of this. As Dave Pilatus, I slaughtered his name. I know, I'm sorry, he said. Sometimes something tries to lure you into the woods off trails and, well, gone. I don't fancy being the next contestant on Where Did He Go? My background is heavy in 911 rescue and military special operations. My handle used to be Doc. I was the medic on the team. And I've been around, you could say, Alaska, seen them there, Yukon training area, too many times, UFO, now UAPs, a lot of them, floating all over the damn place. Voices from nowhere, and nothing on FLIR or any detection gear. What does the wind talk now? I heard stories of that area, places no one has been for hundreds of years. Perhaps someday I will go there, but not alone. There is truly more in heaven and earth than man shall ever know. If you believe Shakespeare, that is. Endo email, there you go. Sounds like somebody's had another household with ongoing crazy shit going around it. Another household. There's so many people out there living rurally that have this stuff going on non-stop, and they're just dealing, right? They're just dealing with it. Keep emailing in. Any of you people out there who having shit piles of stuff going around your rural property and you know what's going down, just share it with us, man. Share it with us. We want to know. We want to know, and maybe somebody can help.
Mark, this is red, and this is titled, For You and Nino, the Navajo, quote, Howler Squad, end quote. Excuse me. This is from our good man, Brian Stidham. Good evening, good sir. Here's a topic you can discuss with Nino that's in his neck of the woods. The Navajo Nation Police Department has a unit that is called when there are reports of the, quote, howler, end quote. What's the howler? Some of the eyewitnesses that have seen it say it's a skinwalker. Others say it's a version of Sasquatch that's seen in that part of the Southwest. The Navajo call it an evil spirit, and they won't speak about to many who ask, but the Navajo Police Department has a squad that has one job: to investigate howler sightings and interactions. In other words, taking police reports from witnesses to become legal record. With that said, If you or I call our local PD, Sheriff Department, or State Police and make such a report, most likely they'll hang up the phone laughing or arrest us for making a fraudulent police report. The Navajo Nation recognizes the existence of these beings and keeps records of the interactions. Many tribal police departments take reports on the Sasquatch, Sabe, Omaha, etc., etc. But if a municipality that we may live in has an encounter, we're labeled nut jobs. Nino is close to the Navajo Nation. Have him contact their PD and with honesty and openness ask to speak with someone from the Howler Squad. The native people of this country and First Nations of Canada may not let the outside world know about these beings, and people due to the ridicule that would come with it. Nino's a good man. Have the Navajo PD watch his videos for confirmation. I just want to let you know about this since you're having another discussion with him soon. And by the way, there are YouTube videos of this squad. I have another lengthy email coming soon. It may be upsetting to some, but this has to be heard and known. Take care, Steve. Take care, Steve. And you and yours have a great one. I don't know about you, but I can't wait for bow season to open here October 1st. Yeah, me too, man. Respect goes a long way with these people. Keep telling them your intentions, as I know you do, and they respect you for it with no interaction. When that day comes, you'll know, without a doubt, you have extended family members in the forest. I'm willing to bet it won't rattle you in the least. Yeah, I know. You don't want that shit. But if there's a reason that you can see or know about, and they convey it, well, you just joined a whole other club. Watch your six, listen to the woods and the water, and always, always look up. Good night to you and Sarah and Ruby. Sunka, pronounced Shunka, dog, Lakota. Pet your horses for me. I miss being around them, as I was in my youth. Wonka Sunka, pronounced Wanka Shunka. The Lakota have no word for horse. Instead, they are given the name Wakan Sunka, sacred dog. They're treated like family members, as are all animals. Well, now I'm rambling. Good night and all the best, Brian Stidham. Mitakuye Owasin. Appreciate you, Brian. I really, 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 really appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to your next lengthy email, and it is what it is, man. Don't worry about what it does to people's reactions. It is what it is. Just spill it. We're here. Anyway, guys, I'm absolutely beat, and I got to get some more food in me and get some proper sleep and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get after it again. I've got 1-2 more days guiding left here, and then I think I have some dear friends coming out soon, and then it's go time to go up north. So there you go. Keep emailing in your knowledge and your experiences to sharemystory@howtohunt.com. It's very important. Things are really ramping up rapidly these days with this topic here, with all of you here. Okay, guys, everything seems to be really ramping up, and I absolutely feel something's up, something's coming, something very significant. It's on its way. I don't know what it is, but I just feel it. I feel anxious. I'm feeling something. Besides exhausted. Okay, I'll be back tomorrow after fishing again.